Hello everybody, my name is Stefan Kraus from Byte the Bytes, and welcome to this introduction video. I would like to show you quite a lot of features which are available inside World Creator, so I will just fly over them quite roughly, and we will create a lot more tutorial videos step by step showing you and explaining you all the sections and all the tricks and tips that you can do to create really awesome terrains. I also would like to ask you to join our social sites and join our forums and of course also our Discord channel to share all your ideas and suggestions with us. Okay, now if you start World Creator for the first time, you will have to confirm the Euler and then enter the license key that you have received after your purchase from our shopping provider, which is Avantgarde. And you finally will end up in this menu screen here. So the first thing that we need to do is to create a new project by clicking on New, selecting a location where you want to store it, and let's give it a name. I will give it a name. I will call it Intro. Here we go. And our World Creator is going to create a project folder called Intro. Here it is, and we'll put that project file into this folder. And as you can see, there are also a few other folders which are quite important, especially the screenshots folder, which will keep all the screenshots that you make inside World Creator. And the Sync Tool folder, which is quite important because World Creator incorporates with Unity and Unreal with a so-called synchronization tool. It's an editor extension which is available for Unity and Unreal. It ships with World Creator and you will have access to it after your purchase. And that tool is intended to recreate the terrains that you create inside the standalone version to quickly recreate and transfer it over to Unity and Unreal. Okay, so after creating a new project, this is what you will see here. To the left you have that toolbar, which has a few tools available. A few more will come in here within the next few weeks and months. So we have, for example, a new project. We have save project intro, so we can save it. We have the heat maps here, some observe tools and other nice stuff. And also the synchronization tool export, which I explained. If you hit this button, World Creator is going to export everything necessary into that sync folder. So you'll be able to recreate the terrain inside Unity and Unreal. And with this one, you can take a screenshot, pressing it, you can see there is a small flash and the screenshot has been taken, and here you go. You can also take a screenshot with the F12 key by pressing it, and before doing this you might enter the full screen mode with F10, so it's better for doing some nice screenshots. There's also a virtual reality mode. If you have an Oculus Rift or a Vive, then you can press F9 to enter the virtual reality mode inside World Creator and explore your world in VR. So before I'm going to explain the next few things, I would like to quickly explain the controls. Like rotating the camera is pressing and holding the right mouse button down. And with WASD you can fly and strafe. And if you hold down the left shift key while you're flying, you're getting a little bit faster. You're speeding up the camera. As you can see here, quickly get closer to it. Here we go. And with Q and E, you can strafe down and up. And if you want to get back to the original focus or the original view of the camera, just hit the F key, moving back. You also can zoom into your terrain. It zoom in to the location at which your mouse pointer points on the terrain. So you can do that with a mouse wheel, zooming in and out. And if you double click the right mouse button, you quickly zoom into the location where you have clicked on the terrain, like this. There we go. Okay, so these are the controls for now. We're going to add further controls later on, but currently you will require a mouse and a keyboard at least to have a good experience with World Creator. Okay, now let's see what we have here to the right. This is the Properties panel, and inside the Properties panel you can see we have a Surface tab, and within that Surface tab, just as for the other as for most of the other tabs, there are further subtabs. In this case, the base and the filters. And the surface tab is used to create the base shape of your terrain actually. So here's everything you can do about the terrain shape itself inside World Creator. However, this is not really true because the areas extends this a little bit, but we'll come to this later. Under texturing, you will find the ability to apply textures on your terrain and also set up the several texturing techniques that are available inside World Creator. Under scene, you can apply objects and grass and adjust the ocean level and adjust the weather and the sky settings. Within the areas, you can create areas which are basically blend maps, but also can include height maps. So they are multifunctional tool. You can use them to paint textures on your terrain or to specify specific areas on your terrain that should be covered by textures or objects and so on. So many possibilities. You also can just use the areas to paint your own height maps on the terrain or import existing height maps and enhance them with the World Creator procedural techniques. Then under options, you will have all those nice settings like where you can disable the real-time generator and switch over to streaming mode, which enables you to create an endless terrains in any size. The real-time mode, however, supports a maximum resolution of 16K by 60K. That's what you can do in real time, which is pretty fast. I will show you quickly. Another thing, so you have those graphics settings here. You can set up all the stuff for the visual quality and also the camera settings, so you can set up the camera movement and how it should behave while moving your camera around. Now let's start with the surface. Here you can see that export button. So everything that you create, here you can export the height map and the normal map of your terrain. You could do the same for texturing. The export button is depending on what section you have chosen. And once I have applied textures, you will see an export button here as well. Same for the scene. And now let's back to the surface. Let's take a closer look at the base tab, at the base subtab of the surface. So the first value that you can change is the seed number here, which generates a random terrain depending on the seed. You can apply an area, to which I will come later on. You can adjust the size of your terrain. Look at this. I mean, please see what's going to happen here. I'm creating an 8K terrain with a resolution of 8K, and I'm doing this in real time, so it's no waiting time at all. You also can create whatever size you like to create, so you're not dependent on power of 2 sizes or whatever. You can do whatever you'd like to do inside World Creator. We have no limits in here. You also can change the height, so the elevation values. This actually just tells World Creator that the value should be generated within the range of -100 and +684. And watch this, doing this in real time. Isn't it cool? I love this. Okay, so the next one, this is a pretty nice one. This is the precision slider. So the precision slider here tells us this is now a 1 meter precision, which means that if your terrain size is 2048 by 2048 with a 1 meter precision, you have a final height map which is 2048 by 2048 in pixels, okay? So if I'm increasing the precision, then I have double the size. So, and the higher the precision, the more detail you have. And you see I have now increased to 16K. And now watch the difference between 16K, here we go. I'm doing this in real time, please don't forget that. But now see the difference between 16K, 4K, 1K, and so on. So here we're talking about the level of detail for that resolution, right? The higher the resolution, the larger terrain generally you could do, but also the more detailed terrains you could do if you look at a specific area, the smaller areas of a terrain shape. Okay, so the next one is like the soil here. You can render a soil. This is just a visual thing. But another interesting thing is the custom base shape tool, which is really powerful. If I check this one here and click on edit shape, you will see that those spheres here appear above the terrain. And I can now use these spheres. Watch how I'm doing this in real time. Just click on it by pressing the left mouse button and drag those spheres. Now you can use them to quickly create a shape on your own and roughly sculpt the terrain with these nice spheres. There are several tools to select multiple spheres at once or only a single sphere. You also can flatten your terrain like this and start from scratch. It's also possible to increase the number of spheres. You could do this by reducing the first level strength step down to 0. You're getting a lot more spheres here. Flatten your terrain and start sculpting. Here we go. Isn't it beautiful? It's fantastic. So a really nice and easy way and a really fast way to get something out of it very, very quickly, and you can see the results instantly. Okay, so now we will cover this in a special video. So for the first thing, let's reset all the values here, and we're done with this. The next thing is like seamless. You can make the terrain seamless. You have here sliders for the general strength. So the base filter internally covers a basic filter, and that basic filter is responsible to generate the very first noise values that are fed into the terrain generator for further things like applying filters. So the filters and all the other stuff is consuming those base values to further modify the terrain. And here you can adjust a few things for the basic filter. You can smooth the terrain, you can make it more rough and so on. So no limits in here. And you also could go and edit the curve, which would mean that you're having direct control over the generated values. So the values are regularly generated between 0 and 1, and here you can set up the strength for the values that are between a specific range. And this lets you create, for example, what I've seen here, less mountains, more valleys. And if you again decrease the first level strength step, you have several other options you can use it for. So pretty cool, pretty powerful, and we will cover this also in another section. You can scale it even a little bit. Oh wow, that's cool here. Really nice. Okay, let's reset this one. Another thing you could do is, for example, let me quickly check this here. Edit curve, turn it off. Is the offset. And with the offset, you can quickly move your terrain virtually to the left, to the right, or up and down. It's best visual if I'm, let me quickly see it here. If we do it like this. And now let's move and offset the terrain generator by the values. You can see it's like if I'm flying over the terrain. And you can, with this one, you can just find a nice spot that probably fits better to your meaning. So yeah, it's just an additional thing you can use, and it looks pretty nice. Okay, so the next one here, and that's really powerful, but you really have to learn it actually, what it really means. So the first thing, each step that you here have represents a resolution internally. And those sliders are affecting the strength of the elevation values that are being generated by the random generator at a specific resolution. So for example, if I'm going to increase the last one here, the level step 10, increasing it, you see that I'm affecting the elevation values at the very high resolution, at the maximum resolution, which is 24.8 by 24.8. And if I'm doing it with the next lower one, affecting the 10/24 and so on. Now 512 resolution, the 256 and so on. So you can use them for many purposes actually. For example, you could use them to quickly smooth out your terrain a little bit with this trick. You could also use them to create a virtually larger landscape on this terrain. Try to remember this shape. You have a mountain here, you have a mountain here, and a small one here, and there's a path through here. Now if I'm decreasing the first level strength, setting this to 0, you will see that having the same shape exactly at the bottom left corner. And if I'm reducing the height, it's more obvious. And I can continue this. So I'm creating a much larger terrain area. Here we go. At the same terrain shape, size. Okay. So many possibilities you can use that here to adjust and tweak the terrain just as you'd like to have to do. Now, these values here, especially level strength step values, are also available for filters, and that's what we cover next here. I would like to quickly show you and introduce you some filters inside World Creator. So the filter concept is like you have to first creating a layer, and you can create as many layers as you want, and each layer can have multiple filters applied. Here you see that. Each layer can also have a specific name, so you can name your layer. I could call it like an erosion layer. And now let's see if we add a simple erosion filter. By clicking here on Add, a filter window will open up, and there you can see we have categorized tons of filters, and each of them has really nice stuff included. And because we call this an erosion layer, we're going to add an erosion fluvial filter. And now watch this. As I'm applying the filter, I quickly have erosions applied on my terrain. I mean, this is done in real time. Please don't forget that. So each of these filters, you have filter properties, and those properties are filter specific. Though the erosion filter could have something like a depth value here. And I can change it and move it around and see what kind of different erosions I get out of the values as I mix them together. So it's not only a fluvial erosion specific filter, actually you can do a lot more erosion types with it if you set up the values properly. You could also now add another filter into the pipe for that layer. Like, let's say we're going to add an effect filter, like a distortion filter. So we're going to distort the terrain a little bit. See here, and you can see how the filter system works. So first the erosions are applied, and then the distortion. I can also change the order, giving a few difference between them. And I can continue this with several other effects, like a swirl effect in addition, and sum them up and, combine them, changing all the values depending on what I'd like to achieve here, like the swirl, and many possibilities. And really interesting thing I would like to show you is the distribution, and therefore I'm going to remove all filters right now because I'd like to select a filter which is more obvious that you can see, and that's a Minecraft filter here. And why I'm choosing is because you will see now what's going to happen if I'm telling World Creator to distribute this filter not only all over the whole map, but also in 3 dimensions, like the height range, only within a specific height range. So if we enable the height range checkbox here and reducing the range, the top range, you can see that what's going to happen. So that filter is now being applied only within this kind of range. If you don't really see the location at which has been applied, you can also use the heat map here. If you enable it, you will see the exact positions at which that filter is being applied on that terrain. So this heat map is a good indicator to see which parts on the terrain are being affected by whatever operation. If it's a filter operation, if you're applying textures or applying objects or whatever. Okay, so you can do that. You can do the same for the slope range. And again, these level step strength can be used to further modify the filter in a specific way as you like to have it. So many possibilities. And these are of course depending on what filter you have applied. Okay, now this is about filters, but before I continue with texturing, I'd like to give you just a rough overview of among a few other filters, like the Voronoi filter here. We have also 2 design filters, like the path filter, which doesn't change obviously the first thing, but because this one consumes Bezier curves, and you can add a curve by clicking here on Add Path. Now you have one path created. You can give it a name. You have several sliders for that path, but you don't see anything right now because you first have to place some control points for that path. Well, you can do that by clicking here on Edit Path. And here you can see a short description of how to add control points, and also inserting control points or even removing control points. So hold down the left shift key and press and click on the terrain at whatever location, and you can see I'm adding control points to that terrain. Now each of these control points can be further manipulated, like you see here. I can drag them around, I can also move it, or I can just change the width of it. You can see that it also directly affects the terrain in real time. Isn't it awesome? I mean, watch this. We also could do for example, a simple river very, very quickly. If you just reduce a little bit the height offset, I could do a river that goes through here, maybe something like that. And now reducing the level step strength size here. And this one indicates with which strengths the Bezier curve is taken into account with a mix of the terrain, okay? You could also use the noise factor, give it a little bit more noise, reducing noise scale, and increase the segments or decrease the segments to create something really nice. Here we go. And we formed a river quickly. I can move it around here, doing stuff. Okay, so this is what a path can do. You can do a lot with it as well. You could also use it just to quickly create some kind of mountains if you'd like to. Even this is possible. So many more options you can do to make it real looking absolutely interesting and realistic. There we go. Okay, so that's it for the path filter. What I would like to show you also is, well, the shape filter actually does the same as the path filter, but instead of creating Bezier curves, it's creating a whole shape that you have control over. Then these effect filters, you've seen a few of them already. So like this one, the pixelate filter here, was a request by users, thanks for it. Like the alien filter, it creates also nice results here, like a moon crater landscapes, pretty stuff. We have the canyon filter here, creates some canyon specific kind of terrains. We have like the mountains here. And what do we have? We have plateaus. I could do, for example, like this here. We have the ridge filter, of course, doing some really nice ridges. And we have also terrace in the Minecraft filter, doing some terraces here. Or even dunes, there's no problem at all. So many options you can use to create a really nice shape. And use those filters to transform your terrain, apply specific effects, and so on to create something that looks really realistic and awesome. Okay, now I would like to apply the fluvial erosion filter and head over to the texturing tab here. So with the texturing tab under textures, you can add textures and completely colorize your terrain. The workflow is just as simple as for the filters. You first have to create a layer, and you can create as many layers as you want. And each layer again can cover more textures or multiple textures. Just click here on add, and a texture window opens up. You can select between the normal and displacement, so the window will show up every texture that you have included, or just the diffuse. If you, for example, select a texture, the world creator is trying to find automatically the corresponding normal and the displacement map, and is going to apply that texture directly on the terrain. You see it here. And again, each texture has its own properties. You can tag it. You also can change the texture by clicking here on an image, change the texture. You could do the same for the normal map by selecting a normal, for example. So many options you could do here. And also options like the tile size, if you probably know what it means. You can increase the tiling for specific effects. You can offset the texture to specific directions. So let me quickly increase the time. You can see what offset does. Moving around actually on the terrain. You can shade the texture, colorize it. You can increase, for example, the smoothness. You can tell what created should be more metallic. You can increase the brightness, reducing contrast, increase contrast. So many options you could do here. Let's reset to the default value. And textures can also be distributed on specific criteria. But before I'm going to use this, let's add another texture. Let's add a rock texture. Let's say we're adding this one here, the dark cracks. Select that texture. And now I want to distribute it only along a specific slope in some world creators. You can do this by moving the slope range here. You can see what's going to happen. So all these distribution values, I mean, I won't step through each of them because we're going to cover the texturing itself in a separate video. But there are many options you could use, and the really nice things I would like to quickly show you here, like the cavity feature. Let me quickly reset the slope range. The cavity feature could be used for several effects and so on. So many options you can do. Pretty powerful and awesome. And you can drop in more and more textures and create a really nice look of your terrain. Quickly create one that looks quite interesting. Something like this here maybe. So we could use, for example, stuff like that. Okay, so the next one is, I mean, from far away it looks pretty awesome. As you move in, and then we'll quickly move in here, you can see that we have tiling artifacts. So the textures are repeating into each direction. It doesn't look pretty cool if you're too close to the terrain. So you can switch over to the General tab, where you have the option to tell World Creator what kind of techniques in addition during the whole texturing method should be used. For example, you could try to eliminate tiling. If you check this, then you can see the tiling is being almost completely eliminated on the terrain. It looks a lot better. But please be aware that if you enable this, then the frame rate will drop quite heavily, because it's a very complex technique which uses additional procedural stuff inside the shader code to reduce the tiling heavily. Another thing you could do is using a purling normal noise, which gives you just a little bit more detail on the terrain. It looks a little bit better if you're playing around with the values here, so you can see the changes. And if you switch over to the texture and select the texture, you will have one more slider here, like the purling normal. Increasing it, you can see you can just add a little bit. So it a little bit breaks tiling. It looks much better if you're far away for really good screenshots. You can see here. So it's a pretty good effect at all. Another thing that's interesting is the tree planar effect. Let me quickly choose a location on the terrain where I could show it to you more clearly. Could be here. Here you can see that, yeah, that's a good location. Here you can see that this texture has been stretched all over that cliff here. And if you want to reduce this, then just enable tree planar. And now what Chris is trying to adjust it properly, so it looks pretty awesome, a lot better than before. Height-based texturing is a specific kind of texturing, best presented if you have two textures that fit well together. Like, let me quickly show you here. See, here we go. Height-based texturing takes the height maps of each of these textures into account and tries to mix them depending on the height level that you have adjusted. And here you can, for example, see what it means. So the height comes into account, and you get a little bit more realistic technique. Actually, it looks pretty well if you have some textures like a sand which flows into rocks. Looks a lot more better. Okay, but however, you will have to select really good textures for this, and GameTextures.com has them all. I suggest to use them. They're pretty awesome. Okay, now let's move on to the Scene tab here. We want to populate our terrain with some trees. So the first thing you have to do again is select Objects, Add a Layer, click here on Add for the objects, and the Objects window appears here. And you can see I have tons of objects included in the World Creator package. And all these nice trees are from SpeedTree, one of the best, really one of the best tree providers I know. And it's just as simple as applying textures or filters and distributing them. Just select the tree by clicking on it, and World Creator is now quickly populating your terrain with trees. I mean, this right now doesn't look really really convincing, because it's just the trees are sparsing all over the terrain. Doesn't look like it would be a forest or something like that. But we'll change this very quickly by adjusting the distribution properties. For example, we could use the cavity feature again, and let's see how it looks like if we increase the probability. So telling World Creator we want more trees at all, reducing the object distance, Oh, and now we get something that looks pretty cool, right? Now we're talking here. And we could also change a few settings here to get a better, more realistic look of the whole terrain. Could also increase the view distance so it covers larger areas of the terrain, and you can see it's done in real time. Of course, it takes a little time to generate them, but you don't have to wait hours or even days. You just see it almost instantly with the tree placement. However, be careful with these values like the object distance and probability of view distance. It depends on how powerful your graphics card and your computer actually are. So if you have a really good computer with a really powerful graphics card, it's not a big deal. But if you have not that a good one, then please be careful with these values, else it might take a long time until they are fully finished. Now that we have trees applied, there are a few other things like the object properties for that tree. For example, you could align them along the terrain. That would mean that they're. Let me quickly find location here. Here we can see that tree that is aligned with the terrain. We don't want that. Disable it. So growing up. And a lot of other things like changing the height of the trees and so on. Many content that you can do and change here. I quickly reduce it. Another thing I like to add now are details. Clicking on details, and those details could be, for example, grass and trees. No, not trees. Flowers and so on. So let's add a layer and let's add a detail, and the detail window opens up. And here you can select now all the nice grass blades you would like to apply. Again, it's done extremely fast, so it's been applied on the terrain. And the same settings here, you can increase the probability, and in this case, you can increase the density for the grass. And what's pretty cool, look at how the grass gets the color of the underlying terrain. So this is this can be controlled with the ground tint strength. If I'm increasing it, it just uses the value of the color value of the grass blade itself. And the more increasing it, the more it gets the color of the underlying ground. A good mix could be something like this. Now let's add just another grass by duplicating it, and let's add some nice flowers maybe. So we're having some flowers included. Let's increase a little bit the height of these flowers, and maybe the probability should be reduced. Here we go. And we've done flowers all over the map. Okay, so now let's move on to the next one. This is the ocean I'd like to show you. I'll quickly zoom out to the whole screen. Here we have an ocean plane that you can enable, and WorldCreator is rendering a whole ocean. And there you can see we have the trees inside the ocean. And so why is this? Because we can set up and tell WorldCreator to use that ocean plane, especially the ocean height, as a further distribution property, depending on whatever you could do. For example, let's say for grass. Let's take a look at the grass. We have some grass down here, and now move over to the grass and tell the grass blade here to take the ocean height into account. So we're enabling the height range filter and enabling the relative to ocean filter. And now those grass blades are 10 meters below and 10 meters above the ocean. So we can quickly change this if we're moving up like a value like this. Here we go. You see that? We've changed it. So we could do the same for this. There we go. Just to tell WorldCreator, no flowers inside water. And of course we can do the same for the trees as well. Here we go. And just to make this clear, I'm going to disable the ocean plane so you can see there are no trees below the ocean plane at all. And that could also affect the texturing. For example, I could add another texture. Let me quickly see here. Let's add a beach texture, for example. And let's say to that beach texture, it should be taken into account with the relative ocean plane again. And you can see that here. If I'm moving now the ocean height, you can see that the texture is moving with it. Same for the trees. Please try to remember this trees here. Moving up. And there we go. So it's a really powerful distribution method you can use to further make it more realistic and saving a lot of work actually. Okay, now let me quickly clear all my objects because I don't want them having right here. Because I want to show a few other things like the weather. Well, here you can set up the wind, which is important, which affects trees and grass and also some filters. You could enable the rain, for example, a rain effect, giving some rain and some mist around it. Pretty nice, good for screens. And you could also adjust the sky settings. As you can see, I'm already in realistic mode. If I'm turning this off, then I just have a simple solid color as a background, which is this one here. See here? So I can change it as well. Let's turn back to realistic mode. And you can see that I'm still covering the color that I have used here. So I still can shade the color of my sky. Well, I don't want to do this right now because I would like to show you how the colorization could also work if you're playing with a time day slider. So this is what we have in a really atmosphere scattering effect all across. And it looks really awesome. Watch this. Isn't it nice? Very beautiful. Okay, and it looks even more beautiful if you enable the atmosphere fog for your terrain. And now play again with the time of day slider. Oh, if you wonder why these things are getting red, well, this is because of the shadow settings that we have here. You would have to adjust all these terrain tessellation sliders a little bit to get the proper value out of it. We will cover this in another tutorial video, how you can get rid of this. Wow, looks great. Okay, so here we have a few more settings regarding the sky. You can adjust the sun size, the sun color, you can adjust the sun shaft's color, you can even adjust the density of the clouds here. A lot of stuff. I would suggest that you play around with them to see what they really cover. However, we will cover this section in a separate video and show you some really nice stuff. But let's move on to the more important thing, and those are the areas, because they have a really great feature, actually a lot of features you can do with them. So the areas are a multifunctional tool. Basically, they just have a blend map covered, which looks like, let's add an area, and that's a blend map. This red part here that you see, this is the blend map. And because I want to demonstrate a few things, let me quickly change the erosion filter into another filter, like the Minecraft, so we can see it obviously what's going to happen very soon, what I'm going to do. However, those blend maps right now, if you click on this area, you can move it around on the terrain. You can even rotate it if you're moving out the mouse cursor out of the area. You can rotate it, and if you click on these gizmos, you can scale it. Now, this blend map is an indicator which indicates a specific part on your terrain. So it's meant to be used in combination with filters, with textures and objects. And I would like to show you how to apply this Minecraft filter only within the region of that area, which is defined by the blend map. So this can be done by, if you select the surface, go over to filters, there's a layer, and that layer here has an area, and here you can select that area. And once you select it, you see that World Creator is quickly taking that area into account, and now you see that only that part on the terrain which has been covered by the area is being affected by the Minecraft filter. Here's this box you can uncheck, which is show. This will uncheck the blend map, so it's not visible anymore to you, and you can see how it behaves on the terrain. Now you can see that it's not completely covering. There you have a border. That's why there's a border blend range you can use for blending it with the underlying. So you get a good blending with the underlying terrain if you want to mix them together, or you just put it with the hard edges. You can see here. Another thing which is really cool I would like to show you is if you, for example, if you clear this blend map, then of course the Minecraft field is no longer applied because there's no information where it should be applied anymore. But you can use the edit blend map functionality inside World Creator to paint that filter on your terrain. Now let's see what we can do here. Let's paint this part here as a Minecraft filter. Here we go. Watch it. Isn't it beautiful? I'm doing this in real time. It's just fantastic. Let's do a better blending so it looks more realistic for us. Wow, just wow. Doing this in real time, and I have all those nice paint tools that you use from several other terrain editors. So you already might sense how powerful World Creator not only in procedural generation is, but also in terrain editing, right? You can, of course, also erase it or clear it at all again, or just fill it. Oops, I'm saving it to file, sorry. Just fill it, and so on. Now I'd like to show you another feature. I mean, I'm painting now a filter on that terrain, right? So in this case, I also could use it to paint erosions on my terrain. So let's apply the erosion filter, which takes that area into account. Let's move over to the area, select that area, go and edit blend map, and let's paint some erosions on my terrain. Oh, wait. Did I something wrong? Let me quickly show here. Oh, I'm doing something wrong. Let me quickly see. Something went wrong. No. Clear. Oh, I have the wrong tool. Sorry. I have erase tool. Let's paint them. I'm sorry for this. Okay, now let's paint some erosions. Let's make them visible here. And here we go. Now I'm painting some erosions on my terrain and doing this in real time, and it's pretty awesome. So you can do this with any filter that you have and create biomes, create whatever kind of terrain you like to. You have a very powerful tool in hand with these areas, especially with the blend maps. Now I would like to show you one more thing regarding the areas. Let me quickly fill it. That's what I wanted to do. And let me remove the erosion right now. Don't want to have erosion at all. And now what I would like to show you is just another really cool feature for the areas. It's like sculpting your own terrain. So the idea is that you have that you're able to paint your own height map directly on the underlying terrain. And therefore you have this checkbox called Has Height Map. If you enable that one here, World Creator is now creating an internal height map which is completely empty. And that height map can now be just painted on it, just as we did for the blend maps. So click here on Edit Height Map. You have several tools available like Raise, Lower, Flatten, Smooth, and Flatten Average. You can select the brush here and start painting your own height map. If you disable this continuous painting here, it's a little bit more easy because you can see that it just takes with the strength, the current strength, and keeps that current strength painted on, right? Let's quickly clear this height map again and paint some stuff here like this. Let's do. I'm not an artist, so sorry for this. Of course, there's another sliders, a few more sliders like you want to blend it completely or just mix it with the underlying terrain a little bit better. You can scale it, you can offset the height as you can see, and really cool, I mean, you can move it all around. Watch this. Rotate, even scale it. And with this, actually, it's could be understanding like a stamping system. So like you're painting your own stamps directly within World Creator and creates and with that you're creating the terrain shape that you're looking for. But you also just can import an existing height map through file like real world data and stamp this on your terrain and mix all those nice stamps all together. So really powerful. And the really nice thing is that if you now apply filters, for example, then those filters, of course, will transform the terrain as well. Here we go. In this case, we're applying erosions on the area, which is that height map. And as we move it, you'll see the erosions are applied accordingly to that height map. Really cool, really cool. Okay, so one more thing about the areas I'd like to show you. Let's create a new one and let's remove the erosion filter again. Is for example texturing. So you also could use the areas to paint textures on your terrain or trees and grass on your terrain. I will show how to do this. For example, for the textures, you need to add another layer. Select that new layer. Select the area for that layer, and add a texture. I'm going to take a texture which is quite obvious to see, like the white texture right here. So I'm moving over to the area. And let's make it visible. And you see, as I move the area already, I'm moving the texture on it. And I'm going to increase, so it takes the whole bounds of the area. And I'm going to clear the blend map, going on edit blend map, and I'm going to paint my textures now. Here we go. That's what you can do with it. And you could do the same for trees, for grass, and for whatever you just can imagine inside World Creator. Very powerful, extremely useful as well. Okay, so another thing that might be of interest is if your computer, or your GPU especially, is not a modern one, then you can tell World Creator not to take the filters and the texture directly into account while painting. Then you can, because of speeding up things, you could just check this box here, and as you paint now on this terrain, let me quickly see here, you'll see that, oh, it's going to paint, sorry, it's because I did something wrong. Filters, oh, this is regarding the filters, I'm sorry. So let's say you have applied, let's take the Minecraft filter. Here we go. And we need to select the area for that filter. Here we go. And now we have to select it, and let's clear the blend map here. And as you paint now, the filter, the texture is taking into account, but you can see it's no Minecraft. Now, as I relieve the mouse button, it's going to be a Minecraft stuff. Okay, let's do it again without the texturing. I'm painting, and once I release, it's taking into account. That's where you can speed up things. And the same while moving the areas around on that area with filters applied. It's just the same. As you move, it's not being generated, but as you release, it's being generated. So this will speed up things a lot, especially if you're working with erosion filters and you have applied a lot of filters in general all over the terrain. Okay, so now let's move on to the next one in the options. I already explained a few things in here. Maybe worth mentioning is if you're having a 4K monitor or even higher, you might think that 100% scale of the UI as currently is could be too small to read things, so you can scale it up a little bit for better visibility. You can also change the skin. We have a few skins included inside World Creator. See here, different colors. Orange, we have magenta, and we have also, of course, the classic skin, which you might know from older videos and older versions. Okay, another thing that's interesting is a distance dependent speed, which I didn't check right now. That means that if I'm moving in here, as you can see, I'm not getting slower as I get closer to the terrain surface. But if I enable this, then I'm getting closer as I'm getting slower the closer I move, or the closer I get to the terrain surface. And the farther I get away, the faster I get. See here. So this helps a lot to navigate on your terrain very, very quickly. Just a side note. Okay, that's it for now. It was a rough overview about a few things inside World Creator. There's a lot more we can show you. Please make sure to check out our other tutorial videos. We'll cover each section step by step, explaining all the stuff, and special things like the custom base shape tool in the area and the height map function, importing real world data and such things are again separate videos. Okay, I really hope you enjoyed. Please make sure to join us on Discord and our forums. Please share all your thoughts and ideas and suggestions with us. I wish you a nice day. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.